In June of 2014, our denomination's General Assembly hosted Sister Simone Campbell as the annual Ware Lecturer. You may know Sister Simone as the organizer of the Nuns on the Bus tour, as a religious leader who's passionate for compassionate public policy. In that lecture, Sister Simone urged us, as Unitarian Universalists, to walk toward trouble. This has become a phrase many yous have grabbed onto and started pairing with our familiar standing on the side of love. Sister Simone used this phrase, walking towards trouble, as an analogy for our journey of faith. She believes that this was the practice of all the spiritual leaders of our time. When there are broken hearts or pain in the world, she shared, they have walked toward it. They have walked toward the pain in order to embrace and touch and heal. Isn't that the witness we all try to follow? Our world is definitely one filled with trouble. You cannot turn on the news, the radio, watch a presidential debate without seeing the troubles of our world. Story after story of unnecessary death, pain, community outrage, stories of loss, despair, division, separation, and hate. This can be a time when we want to curl up and hide. Turn off all media and pray that it stops, or that it just goes away, or that at the very least it doesn't get close to the ones we love. A friend called this week and she said, I know the world seems to be falling apart. Whether it's Syria or our own election, there's just so much pain. But right now, this very moment, I have to get my kid to school and me to work. And while I want to help, I just can't think about it. I can't open myself up to that much terror and pain and still make it through the day. Now, I know that I've had moments when I felt the same way. Moments when the pain and the destruction of the world is just honestly too much to bear. Faces of children in detention camps with uncertain futures and eyes filled with fear. It's too much. Faces of unnamed parents in countries far away and unknown to me, burying loved ones who were victims of a situation completely out of control and beyond my imagining. It's too much. Knowing that our country incarcerates over 2 million people a year in a prison system that is clearly tainted with a pervasive systemic racism is too much. And I am sure each of you could add to this list. The desire to turn away and watch videos of cute puppies is strong. There was a voice in my head as the news keeps getting worse, as the images are more violent, the voices more afraid, that kept saying, universalism. What the world needs more of is the saving message of universalism, our saving message. Universalism, Richard Gilbert tells us, is a powerful word in our fragmented society, with its culture wars, its ethnic and racial separation, its partisan bickering. In a world of increasing divisions, the universalist impulse to include everyone in the human family is imperative. The heart of universalism is infinite love, a love so large that it contains all things, so infinite that it contains all that is finite. In the late 1700s, universalism came to this land in the heart of John Murray. Murray sailed to this country to start a new life and ended up spreading the message of a love for all. A message that said God was not a God of judgment and punishment, but one of love and mercy. He shared, go out into the highways and the byways of this land, your new country. Give the people something of your new vision. You may possess only a small light, but uncover it. Let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and minds of people. Give them not hell, but hope and courage. Do not push them deeper into their despair, but preach the kindness and everlasting love of God. In the 1950s and 60s, a new kind of universalism emerged. Clarence Skinner, Clinton Lee Scott, Kenneth Patton, they all began to enlarge the meaning of universalism. They envisioned a faith that embraced the whole human race. After all, they would say, if God treasured all people, then why won't we? Clarence Skinner said humanity must enlarge the borders of its consciousness to include the entire human race. The hope for peace on earth depends upon our outgrowing of smaller attachments. Our religion must take the form of a larger loyalty. The religion of greatness gives us the intellectual courage to face the reality, whatever it may be. There's no middle way. It is universalism or perish. Many of the reforms in our country were inspired by universalists, such as Benjamin Rush, a doctor who opposed capital punishment and called for a federal office of peace. Horace Mann, responsible for public education, because he believed that all children, even the most poor, deserved access to education. Clara Barton, who insisted on caring for wounded soldiers on the battlefield where women had never been allowed. Elhanan Winchester, a staunch abolitionist who publicly proclaimed slavery to be an abomination. All of these and others believed in a universalism which demands that categories of race, gender, class, ability, age, religion, that it no longer be used to deny anyone their place in the human community. This is the love that calls us to proclaim that all lives matter. This is the love that calls us not to wait for a far-off heaven, but to take responsibility to create that heaven here and now. This is the love that calls us to walk towards trouble, to open ourselves to a world of suffering and pain and injustice and cling to our message, our faith, our deep belief that it doesn't have to be this way. It calls us to put our faith into action by working to bring justice, peace, life, and love to all. So what do we do if we're not going to hide under the covers and we choose to follow in the footsteps of our forebears and spread the saving message of a universal love? Where do we even start? I find some guidance in 3 little words: question, rethink, act. I'll be the first to admit that there's much that I do not understand about many of the crises happening in our world, and that I have not watched one presidential debate. My first step is to question and to learn. This is where we acknowledge that listening and curiosity are virtues of faith. In my home congregation, we've been listening to the stories of the incarcerated. We've been attending meetings on the causes and challenges of racism in Dane County, where we live. We've been asking questions of those who live this experience day after day, and this is how we learn the deeper truths. So what is your deepest concern about the world we live in? Do you think that you have it all figured out? Then stop. Ask more questions, and be ready to rethink. Because some of our previous assumptions and assertions might not be accurate. When we're walking toward trouble, we must be willing to open ourselves to surprise, to creativity, to different perspectives and deeper truths. Willing to walk toward one another, opening ourselves to another, hearing about the fears and the dreams, and holding them with our own. Who makes you uncomfortable? Talk to them about stuff that matters, about the important issues. Break down the barriers and talk to family members who you know will disagree with everything that you hold dear. Walk toward them with an open heart, listening for the deeper story. Being willing to question and listen and rethink everything we thought was true is what leads us toward community, the only place that is going to make this work. When we're walking toward trouble, we have to walk together. It's the only way it can be done. I saw this during the riots in Ferguson, when you may remember when Captain Ronald Johnson of the Missouri State Troopers took over control of the police force. The first thing he said was, we're going to have a different approach, and have the approach that we are all in this together. I understand the anger and the fear that the citizens of Ferguson are feeling, and our officers are going to respect both of these. I'm not afraid to be in the crowd. I grew up here. This is my community and my home. He came in with compassion, was willing to walk with those who were angry and grieving, and he showed them respect and dignity. Ask questions, learn something new, rethink, be willing to change and challenge your own assumptions, and then act. Because each of us can do something. The Dalai Lama says that if every 8-year-old in the world was taught to meditate, we would have peace within one generation. It's not going to bring peace to the whole world, but I have a 10 and a 4-year-old at home who are learning. One small thing. One small step you can take. The story that currently brings me hope is one of a 13-year-old whose name is Trisha Prabhu. And she was a finalist in the 2014 Google Science Fair. Trisha started questioning the pervasive cyberbullying that she was witnessing, and she wondered, what could she do about it? So she learned at 13 about adolescent brain function. In teens, the prefrontal cortex, which is partially responsible for that crucial step of thinking before you act, isn't yet fully developed. As a result, teens are more likely to act impulsively and post cyberbullying messages without thinking through the consequences. Trisha hypothesized that teens provided with an alert mechanism, encouraging them to rethink the potential harm that their message could cause, would post fewer hurtful or mean messages. And the studies that have been done on the software system she designed, which is called Rethink, results in a tremendous 93% reduction in the number of bullying messages that are posted. Based on the dramatic results, Trisha is trying to get a system such as hers integrated into social media sites and apps. She hopes that one day her system will prevent cyberbullying at the source, and she wrote in her science fair report, I am looking forward to a future where we have conquered and eliminated cyberbullying. This 13-year-old girl knew how to do it. Question, rethink, and act. And her actions could make the world brighter for many. Our tradition is a prophetic one. We believe that we are here to turn our hands toward the good, serve justice, show mercy, stand up to evil, walk toward trouble, cast a wider vision of inclusion, draw the circle wider and wider and wider until it includes everyone. We believe that we are here to bend the arc of the universe toward justice. This is who we are. and it's who we seek to become. Think of one small step that you can take to help heal the world. Doesn't have to be huge. Doesn't have to be earth-shattering. You're not going to need to stop a war or heal a nation. Be a mentor. Be a friend. See a need that you can fill. Don't turn away when it's hard. Walk together. These are the words of Reverend David Miller. I am sick and tired of politics by death. I don't ever stop wondering about what a world would look like where money, time, and creative energy were spent on art, dance, music, poetry, education, scientific discovery, exploration of others, sharing of cultures, love, and the pursuit of joy. There will never be ideological purity. I am doubtful that any one of us, any one way, will ever be the way that everything is. The planet and the universe lives through the daily wonder and the ever-changing miracle of diversity. And we continue to struggle if we deny and violate and pretend that it isn't so. There are certainly days when I am at a loss and a struggle myself to find the joy that I know exists in the world. But I know it does. I know it does because I feel it, I experience, and I see it. I can't help but think since the dawning of time, there have been those opposing forces, and that the greater strength is needed for those who stand on the side of joy and love, and that the love of power and greed and hate are potent in their seduction. We all need to find the good in ourselves and one another, to not get sucked into the blame and the fear and the rhetoric and the resentment. On my bad days, I promise to reach out. On your bad days, please don't hesitate to reach out. We can only tip the balance if we walk toward trouble, reach out in love, and stand together on the edge. And I now invite you to rise in body or spirit for our closing